The armor had sat untouched for over 1,000 cycles, a relic of war buried in the vaults of the Varnak Confederation, rumored to have been forged by a long-dead civilization with knowledge lost to time. Countless alien species, warlords, champions, scientists, and fools had tried to bond with it. None had lasted more than a few seconds before the armor rejected them. Bones snapped, flesh boiled, and screams echoed through the chambers like curses. They called it the Void Skin. Sentient, they said. Aware and angry, its creators were wiped out, possibly by the armor itself. And now it waited, always waiting. That was until the humans came. Humans were late to the galactic stage, primitive, chaotic, and emotionally unstable. But their rise was fast. Too fast. They had a strange knack for breaking what others built and surviving what should have killed them, and that made them dangerous. Or maybe just different. Captain Reyna Morrow didn't look like a galactic savior. She wasn't bred for war or enhanced with cybernetic strength. Just a former scavenger from the outer colonies, now serving under a provisional peacekeeping unit attached to the Varnak borderlands. She had scars, deep ones, emotional and physical, but none of that mattered to the armor. Not yet. Her squad had stumbled across the hidden vault while chasing pirate signals in the Derex system. The energy readings were off the charts, and before anyone could stop her, Reyna stepped inside. "What is this place?" she'd whispered. "Classified," the Varnak tech said, jittering nervously. His skin shimmered in fear, an involuntary reflex. "You're not allowed to be here." She ignored him. The armor stood upright in the center of the room, mounted like a statue but thrumming like a beast. Black metal, carved with crimson veins pulsing softly, as if breathing. The moment Reyna saw it, she felt something twist in her chest. Not fear, not awe, recognition. Her hand moved without thinking, brushing against the plating. The tech screamed, "No!" But it was too late. A shockwave slammed through the room, hurling everyone back. Lights burst, alarms blared, and the ground cracked beneath her boots. Reyna didn't fall. The armor moved, its plating unfolded piece by piece, floating mid-air, and then it slid around her body like liquid steel. No screams, no melting, no rejection. It accepted her. The room fell silent, stunned. Then, as if awakened by her presence, the armor's core flared. A red blaze surged from the chest, pulsing like a heartbeat. Symbols once dead came to life. And somewhere in the vastness of the galaxy, deep in forgotten space, machines stirred. Old ones, deadly ones, ones waiting for a signal. Reyna collapsed to her knees as the armor fused completely. "Captain, are you okay?" A voice crackled in her ear. Her own voice replied, but it wasn't fully hers anymore. "Something's coming, something old, and it knows I'm here." She felt it. War had been asleep. And now it was wide awake. Reyna sat in the center of the ruined vault, the armor clinging to her like a second skin. It didn't feel like metal anymore. It felt alive, warm, almost like blood pulsed beneath it. She could hear it, not with her ears but somewhere deeper, like a whisper brushing against the back of her skull. A voice without language, a presence without shape. Her team stared at her like she was some kind of monster or a miracle. The Varnak tech, Thurn, backed away until he hit the wall. "It chose you," he muttered, trembling. "It chose you. That's not possible." Reyna turned toward him slowly, her every movement now perfectly balanced, too smooth to be natural. "You said no one could wear it." "They can't. Hundreds have tried. They died, screaming. That thing kills everything it touches." He looked like he might be sick. You're not supposed to be alive." "Well," she said flatly, "I guess no one told the armor that." The rest of her squad remained frozen in the corridor, weapons lowered but eyes wide. Even the hard-nosed Sergeant Kell, who had seen a decade of war on the Outer Rims, looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Cap?" he said cautiously. "You all right in there?" "I think so," Reyna answered. But she wasn't sure. Something inside her felt different, stronger, like every cell in her body was humming. The armor didn't just protect her, it was bonding with her, syncing, learning. Her HUD lit up with foreign symbols, scrolling too fast for her to process. Yet somehow she understood what they meant. It was ancient tech, way beyond anything in the galactic archives. Then she felt it, deep in her chest, like a warning bell. Her head snapped upward. "They're coming," she said. "Who?" Kell asked, but Reyna was already on her feet. "Something was sleeping out there, waiting for this armor to wake up, and now it knows I'm here." Back on their cruiser, alarms screamed. Thurn scrambled for a terminal. "I'm picking up multiple warp signatures. Fast, heavy, old tech. Not Varnak. Not anything modern." He looked up, pale. "They're not just coming. They've already arrived." Reyna walked past him, her boots thudding softly, the armor adjusting around her. Doors slid open before she even reached them. The ship recognized her now. Everything was sinking. "Get me visuals," she ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing a stretch of black space now glittering with red. Ships, dozens of them. Dark, jagged, ancient war machines that didn't belong to any known race. They were shaped like insects, spiked and crawling, as if they were grown, not built. And at the center of the fleet was something enormous, a carrier, or maybe a hive. Its hull was cracked and pulsing, its engines leaking a sickly green glow like a rotting wound. It moved slowly, but with terrifying purpose. "Who the hell are they?" Kell muttered. Thurn's voice cracked. "I've seen those designs in Forbidden Records. They're from before the collapse. That's pre-divide tech. That's impossible." Reyna stared at the screen, her heart pounding, not in fear, but with a strange certainty. "They're not here for the Varnak," she said. "They're not even here for the galaxy." Her eyes narrowed. "They came for me." Suddenly, the HUD in her helmet flared. A message appeared in alien text, but she didn't need a translation. "Welcome back, wielder. War resumes." The cruiser shook violently as the first wave of energy struck its outer shields. Alarms flared. Red lights bathed the control room in panic. Outside, the alien fleet began surrounding them like wolves closing in on a wounded animal. Reyna didn't flinch. She could feel the hum of the armor syncing with the ship's systems. Without touching a single control, she accessed the cruiser's defense grid. Data surged through her thoughts like wildfire. Weapon schematics, shield positions, power reserves. It was overwhelming, but somehow manageable. The armor filtered it, organized it, taught her. "Defensive positions!" she shouted. "Divert full power to the forward shields. Brace for impact." Her crew stared at her. Thurn blinked. "How the hell do you know our shield modulation protocols?" "I didn't," she said, eyes fixed on the screen. "The armor does." Another blast slammed into them. The ship groaned, but held. Barely. Reyna turned toward Kell. "We can't win this in orbit. We need to land on the surface. Draw them away from the civilians." "Land. With that fleet out there?" he barked. "They don't want the ship. They want me," she said flatly. "So I give them what they want. And when they come for me, I make them regret it." The room went quiet. Nobody argued. 30 minutes later, the ship broke atmosphere, tearing through the clouds of a nearby uninhabited moon. It was all mountains and ash. No cities, no colonies, no witnesses. Perfect for a fight no one wanted recorded. Reyna stepped out of the drop hatch as soon as the cruiser touched down. The armor shifted around her, reinforcing her limbs, wrapping her back with what looked like wing-like extensions. Blades, maybe. The moment her boots hit the ground, the air around her rippled. The temperature dropped. Energy licked off her like static on a live wire. She wasn't just wearing the armor anymore. She was the armor. The alien ships followed fast. They didn't land like normal vessels. They burrowed into the ground, digging, crawling, cracking the crust beneath them. And from their open maws, they released creatures unlike anything anyone had seen. Not biological, not fully mechanical either. Hybrids, twisted ancient war beasts. They moved like predators, hunched low, with limbs that bent wrong and eyes that glowed like coals. Some had multiple heads, others hovered without wings. All of them locked onto Reyna the moment they arrived. And they didn't roar. They hissed, low, unified, as if speaking in a tongue meant for nightmares. Kel's voice buzzed in her earpiece. "You're not fighting that army alone?" Reyna didn't respond right away. She stepped forward, her armored boots melting the ground beneath her. The wind picked up, whipping ash into the air like snow. "You're right," she said. Then she raised her arm. The armor lit up with burning red lines across her limbs and chest. The ground cracked beneath her. Her voice changed again, layered, distorted, old. "I'm not alone," she said. All around her, strange, dark shapes rose from the stone. Figures, ancient constructs buried beneath the surface, forgotten war machines, tall, skeletal things with blade arms and shielded backs. Not alive, not dead. The armor had awakened them. Her army had been buried with the armor all along, and now they stood behind her. One of the creatures hissed and charged. Reyna didn't move. She waited until it was 2 feet from her. Then she raised her hand and snapped her fingers. The construct to her right lunged forward, driving its blade straight through the beast's chest. Reyna stared at the others. "Come then," she whispered. "Let's finish what your master started." The war hadn't just awakened. It remembered. The sky turned black as the alien fleet fully descended, blotting out the stars above the ash-covered moon. Ships hung like vultures, motionless for now, but ominous. They were waiting, observing, measuring her. Reyna stood at the center of a slowly growing army, ancient constructs, nearly 24 of them, each over 7 feet tall, carved from some kind of dark alloy that shimmered like obsidian under lightning. Their forms weren't perfect. Some looked half-shattered, limping or missing limbs, but they responded to her presence like loyal war dogs. One moved beside her and let out a grinding hum, as if eager to be unleashed. Behind her, Kel and the rest of the squad held the outer perimeter of the drop zone, wide-eyed and silent. No one dared ask where these things came from. No one dared get close, either. "Status on the creatures?" Reyna asked, voice calm despite the chaos. Kel's voice crackled back. "They've stopped advancing, holding formation at about 400 meters. Still surrounding us, but not attacking. It's like they're waiting for something." "They are," Reyna said, eyes locked on the sea of hybrid beasts across the broken plain. "They're waiting for their master." And just as she said it, he came. The ground trembled, the air pulsed, and then from the largest alien ship a figure descended. He didn't ride a craft. He was the craft. Towering, armored in black and crimson like a living monument of death, the being floated down in absolute silence. His body shifted constantly, like molten armor refusing to settle. He landed with a thunderous crack that shattered a ring of stone around him. Then, for the first time, the two sides were face to face. The wielder and the Warbringer. Reyna didn't flinch. The figure stood taller than her by at least 3 feet, with a jagged crown fused into its helmet and 6 glowing eyes that burned like dying stars. When he spoke, it wasn't in sound. It was in pressure, in pulses, in thoughts slammed directly into her skull. "Wielder, you were not meant to rise." She stepped forward, her own armor reacting, surging red light through her veins. "And yet, here I am." "You wear our legacy like a thief." "No," Reyna said. "I was chosen, and I think that pisses you off." The Warbringer tilted his head. "You were chosen by a mistake. That armor was never meant for your kind. You bleed, you rot, you die so easily." "I also fight," she said, stepping forward again. Her constructs moved with her, forming ranks on either side. "And unlike you, I don't need 1,000 years of slumber to remember how." The Warbringer raised one hand. A low vibration passed through the entire moon. Across the battlefield, every hybrid beast began to shift. Then they charged. Hundreds of them. Reyna didn't hesitate. "Form ranks!" she roared, her voice echoing not just in the air, but in the minds of her army. The constructs responded instantly, slamming into position in front of her, shield arms locking together like an ancient phalanx. Her squad fell behind, forming their own defense perimeter. The first wave of beasts crashed into the construct line, and chaos erupted. Steel clashed with bone, blades pierced chests, sparks and black blood filled the air. Reyna was already in motion, her armor propelling her forward like a missile. She collided with a hulking hybrid, splitting it in half with a single sweep of her arm. The armor formed a blade as needed, morphed into claws, became a cannon, always adapting, always perfect. She was fury incarnate, but even as she cut through the wave, she felt the Warbringer watching, unmoving, calculating. She knew this wasn't the real battle. This was a test. He was measuring her. What he didn't know, what he couldn't feel, was the storm building inside her. Because the armor wasn't just connecting her to an army, it was connecting her to a memory, and that memory was waking up. The battlefield burned beneath a blood-red sky, scorched by plasma fire and the violent dance of ancient weapons. Reyna moved like a ghost through the chaos, her body no longer her own, but an extension of the armor's will. Every strike she landed was flawless. Every dodge was pre-calculated. She wasn't thinking anymore. She was remembering. Flashes of something unfamiliar, yet deeply embedded, slammed into her mind between kills. A tower of black stone. A voice calling out her name, but not the name Reyna. A war not of her time. The armor wasn't just protecting her. It was feeding her a past. Its past. A hybrid beast lunged from her blind spot, screeching with a mouth full of blades. The armor reacted before she could. A spike jutted from her elbow, and with a twist of her torso, it tore through the creature's throat. It fell, writhing, choking on its own corrupted blood. Then the memory came again, clearer. A battlefield of broken stars, ships burning in orbit, millions screaming through silent space. She stood at the center of it all, but it wasn't her body. It was someone else's. Same armor, different soul. She gritted her teeth, trying to push the image away. "Not now," she hissed, but the armor didn't stop. The Warbringer raised his hand once more, and from the skies, beams of green fire rained down. They weren't aimed at Reyna. They were aimed at her constructs. Entire columns were vaporized, limbs scattered across the field. Ash replaced steel. The line was cracking. Kel's voice buzzed in her ear. "We can't hold this much longer. Cap, we're getting shredded." Reyna glanced toward her squad. They were pinned behind a broken ridge, laying down fire, but surrounded. Her soldiers were human, fragile, mortal. She could feel their fear. Then the memory struck again. Violent and full. A different war. Another wielder. A woman, eyes blazing with light, standing before a crowd of dying worlds. "You were made to carry the war," the voice whispered in her skull. You are not the first. You are the last. Reyna stumbled as the vision faded. Her breath came hard, steam escaping the vents in her armor. She dropped to one knee as pain surged through her spine. But she understood now. The armor didn't just need a host, it needed a match. Someone who had nothing left to lose. Someone desperate enough to give themselves to it fully. She hadn't just been chosen. She had qualified. Reyna rose, the armor locking tight around her ribs. A strange new strength flowed into her legs, her arms. The heat of war surged through her blood, no longer terrifying, almost welcome. She turned her gaze to the Warbringer. "You're afraid of me," she said aloud, voice crackling through the air. The Warbringer's head tilted. "We are not afraid. We are inevitable." "Bullshit," she growled. "If you were so inevitable, you wouldn't have waited 1,000 years for someone dumb enough to touch this armor. You were hoping it would never wake up again." She raised her arms, and the ground trembled beneath her. The constructs that had fallen began to stir. Limbs regrew. Armor reformed. The armor wasn't just controlling them. It was rebuilding them, rewriting broken code in real time. Where one had fallen, two now rose. And then Reyna did something unexpected. She called out to her squad. "All of you, stand up now!" Kel's voice came back. "We're pinned. We don't have—" "Stand the fuck up!" Silence. Then slowly, one by one, her team rose from behind cover, battered and bleeding. She extended her hand. A wave of red energy pulsed from her core, washing over them. The armor didn't stop with her constructs. Her squad's suits began to shimmer, enhance, adapt. Not full armor, no, but enough. Enough to fight. Enough to survive. "Holy shit," someone whispered. "She's spreading it." Reyna's eyes locked on the Warbringer once more. "I'm not your past," she said. "I'm your reckoning." Then she charged. This time, the Warbringer moved to meet her. Two titans, two legacies, and between them, the fate of 1,000 silent wars. They collided like meteors. The moment Reyna's armored fist met the Warbringer's blade arm, the shockwave split the ground between them. Stone shattered, air cracked, and soldiers on both sides were thrown backward like paper caught in a hurricane. The sky itself seemed to recoil. Reyna spun with the force, using the armor's momentum to dodge the Warbringer's second strike, a sweeping blow meant to slice her in half. His blade hit the ground where she'd stood and sent molten rock spraying into the air. She came up behind him, slammed both fists into his back, and drove him forward several feet. He didn't fall, but he stumbled. He hadn't expected her to hit that hard. Good. The Warbringer turned, eyes burning brighter. He extended his arm, and the blade morphed, stretching into a jagged whip of black energy. It lashed toward her. She ducked, but it grazed her shoulder, carving through the armor with a screech that echoed through her bones. The pain was real, raw and hot, but the armor sealed the wound almost instantly. "You're slow," Reyna said through clenched teeth. "You've been asleep too long. And you are new, arrogant," he lunged. They traded blows with the fury of titans. Every strike from the Warbringer was meant to kill. Every counter from Reyna was precise, strategic. She wasn't trying to overpower him. She was learning. Each movement, each adjustment in his weapon was fed into her armor's systems and adapted against. What he didn't realize was that while he was fighting with old strength, she was fighting with evolving strength. Still, he was relentless. He drove her back with a flurry of rapid blows, forcing her to leap into the air. Her armor responded instantly, sprouting jet boosters from her back and heels. She launched upward, flipping in mid-air, and came crashing down with a seismic punch that cratered the entire battlefield. The Warbringer roared in frustration, staggered again, but he wasn't finished. He raised both arms, and the air shimmered with heat. A ripple spread across the field, and suddenly everything stopped. Time didn't freeze, but it slowed, just enough for Reyna to feel it. Do you know why your kind was never meant to wield the void skin? The Warbringer's voice filled her head. She didn't answer. Because humans feel too much. You drown in your own noise, rage, grief, guilt. You are chaos pretending to be order. The air pulsed. Reyna felt the memories creeping in again, sharper this time, like broken glass under her skin. A child's scream. Her mother, face burned, reaching out through smoke. The smell of burning colony metal and the roar of pirate engines leaving her behind. Number not now. She clenched her fists. The armor around her flared, veins of red light pulsing harder. You use pain like a weapon, the Warbringer hissed, but it will consume you. You think I use it? Reyna spat. Pain built me. She charged again, breaking through the time-slow field with a burst of will and fury. The armor responded with a shriek of metal. This time, she didn't aim for the Warbringer's weapon. She aimed for his core. She drove a punch straight into his chest. The armor howled as her fist cracked through his plating. The Warbringer let out a distorted bellow, part scream, part mechanical glitch, and reeled backward, smoke pouring from the dent in his body. She pressed the attack, slashing, striking, relentless. With each hit, the armor fed her more energy, more clarity, more memory, not just hers, all the previous wielders, their final moments, their victories, their regrets. And one truth burned through it all. This war had happened before, and the last time, it hadn't ended. It had been sealed. That's why the armor waited. That's why it refused others. It wasn't just looking for strength, it was looking for vengeance. Reyna ducked another attack and drove her knee into the Warbringer's head, knocking him off balance. Then she jumped, straight into the sky. Her armor surged with stored energy, aglow, blinding and angry. She raised her arms above her head. Below her, the Warbringer looked up, his 6 eyes narrowing. Too late. She came down like judgment, and the battlefield erupted. The blast tore a canyon into the moon's crust. Flames erupted in all directions as Reyna's impact cratered the ground beneath the Warbringer. A shockwave rolled across the battlefield, flinging both friend and foe like rag dolls. Dust clouds swallowed everything, and for a moment, the world went silent. Reyna rose slowly from the center of the impact zone, the armor hissing and steaming across her body. The chest piece pulsed violently, overcharged and burning red. Her breath was ragged, the kind that came from pushing both body and mind past their limit. Her knuckles throbbed beneath the armor, and her muscles trembled. That last strike had nearly torn her apart. But he was down. The Warbringer lay in the shattered rock, embedded halfway into the earth. His armor cracked, faceplate dented, one of his arms sparking and twitching without purpose. For the first time, he looked less like a god and more like a broken machine. She walked toward him, every step heavy with dust and fury. Her constructs flanked her, battered but still standing. Behind them, her squad, Kel and the others, emerged from cover, staring in awe. They had seen what she did. They had felt it. Kel's voice finally crackled over comms. Is it over? Reyna didn't answer right away. Her eyes never left the Warbringer's body. Something felt off. Wrong. Too quiet. Too still. And then the ground shifted beneath her feet. Not cracked. Breathed. A low groan echoed up from the planet's crust. A vibration that shook the air, the sky, her bones. The Warbringer's damaged body twitched again. But this time, he wasn't moving on his own. He was being dragged, pulled downward by something below. What the hell? Reyna muttered, backing away. Then the Warbringer's chest split open, not from damage, but willingly, as if surrendering something buried deep inside. From the cavity, a black mist poured upward. It didn't behave like gas. It coiled, thick and intelligent. It reached toward the sky like fingers, then sank into the moon's crust. And the voice returned. But it wasn't the Warbringer. It was older. "You opened the gate, little wielder." Reyna froze. He was never the threat. He was the lock. The ground beneath her exploded. A black spire, wider than a cruiser and tall as a mountain, erupted from the surface, spewing chunks of rock into orbit. It wasn't metal. It wasn't stone. It was something alive. The tip twisted as it grew, splitting open into tendrils that screamed into the sky. The Warbringer's broken body was yanked into it and absorbed like fuel. All across the battlefield, the hybrid beasts stopped moving. Every single one of them dropped where they stood, lifeless. They were never meant to win. They were just the distraction. Reyna stared in horror as more spires began to rise in the distance. 5, 10, more every second. And from the holes they left behind, something massive stirred, something buried long ago by beings who understood fear better than any living race ever could. Thurn's voice broke through on the channel, panicked and hoarse. "This isn't an invasion, it's a resurrection. The armor, it wasn't built for war. It was built to stop it." Reyna's breath caught in her throat. It all made sense now. The armor didn't choose warriors because it wanted to conquer. It chose survivors, people broken by pain, hardened by loss, the kind of soul who would never let it fall into the wrong hands. Because it wasn't a weapon. It was a seal, and she had just broken it. The sky above the moon shimmered and tore open. A rift, gigantic, howling with static and light. Through it came something immense. She couldn't comprehend its shape. It shifted constantly, eyes without bodies, limbs without logic. It wasn't a creature. It was a force. And it was free. Her legs nearly gave out. She had won the fight, but she had lost the war. Kel's voice whispered through the silence. "Reyna, what do we do now?" She looked up, jaw clenched, heart breaking. "We finish it," she said, "even if it killed her, especially if it did. The world was ending, and Reyna was the one who had lit the match. The spires howled like dying gods as they reached toward the stars, splitting the moon apart at its core. Cracks spread in all directions, magma boiling from deep within, spilling like blood across the ash-covered battlefield. Above, the rift in the sky widened, reality bending at its edges. The creature on the other side loomed without form, its mass unfathomable, as if it were pressing against existence itself, waiting to step through. And it was her fault. She could feel the armor trembling now, not from fear, but rage. It was screaming, not in her ears, but in her very soul. It knew what was coming. It had fought this thing before, long ago, and it had lost. That was why it sealed itself, why it rejected every unworthy host until her. "I should have known," Reyna whispered, her voice raw. "You weren't a weapon. You were a warning." But there was no time for guilt, no room for regret, not anymore. The ground beneath her cracked violently. One of the spires erupted beside her, nearly toppling her as flaming debris tore into the sky. She caught herself, boots digging into molten rock, armor hissing as it cooled her flesh. Behind her, the constructs had fallen again. This time for good. Whatever energy sustained them was gone. Drained. Spent. Her squad stood at the edge of the crater, watching in stunned silence. They were soldiers. Brave. But this wasn't a battle anyone had prepared for. Reyna turned to Kel. "Get the others back to the cruiser, now." "We're not leaving you," he said, shaking his head. "You can't stop that thing alone." "I'm not stopping it," she said softly. I'm sealing it, just like the last wielder did. His eyes widened. But they died. I know. She turned back toward the sky. I'm not asking you to understand. I'm just asking you to go. Kel hesitated. Then he nodded. You better make this count. She smiled, a bitter, cracked thing. I always do. As her squad fell back, Reyna stepped forward, toward the rift, toward the thing that should not be. The closer she got, the more her vision blurred, as if reality itself was being rewritten. And then, the armor spoke, not in words, in memory. She saw them, all of them. The previous wielders, dozens, hundreds, men, women, beings without names or forms, across centuries, across galaxies. All of them had fought, all had failed, except one, the last one, the one who gave the armor its final command. Wait, watch, choose the one who won't give up. And it had waited. All this time. Reyna reached the edge of the rift. The creature saw her. It turned, if turning was even possible for something that didn't obey the rules of space. It felt her, recognized the armor, and it screamed. Not a sound. A presence. A tidal wave of hatred so deep it froze her breath. But Reyna didn't stop. She lifted her hand. The armor responded, lighting up like a dying star. From her chest, a core emerged, a sphere of red, pulsing with every heartbeat she had left. Initiate final protocol? The armor asked, for the first time seeking permission. She nodded. The core rose into the air, vibrating with unbearable energy. Her legs gave out as it tore from her. Blood ran from her nose. Her vision dimmed. The rift began to collapse inward. The creature screamed again, lashing forward. But it was too late. Reyna, barely conscious, whispered her last command. Close the door. The core detonated. Light swallowed everything, red, blinding, pure. The spires shattered. The rift imploded. The creature howled as it was torn backward, sucked into the void it had tried to escape. The sky sealed shut, screaming as it folded in on itself. Silence returned. Ash fell like snow. When the dust cleared, the battlefield was still. The spires were gone. The sky was whole. The armor lay shattered at the center of a smoldering crater. Reyna was gone. No body, no trace, just a single piece of armor, her chest plate, still warm to the touch. Kel picked it up days later, standing quietly with the rest of the squad. She wasn't supposed to win, he said. Thurn shook his head. She didn't win. She chose to lose better than anyone else could have. They left the plate on a stone. A marker, a warning, and a promise. No one else would wear it, not ever again. Because war had finally gone quiet. And Reyna Morrow, last of the wielders, had made sure it stayed that way.